If I could go back in time, what would I tell myself right at the beginning to do right now? So guys, welcome back to the channel. Montel Gordon here. Nice to be back finally on YouTube. I'm trying to put in 2 to 3 videos a week at minimum. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about, just a couple of tips I would give myself as a beginner entrepreneur, even though I'm a beginner entrepreneur. So it's like tips from a beginner entrepreneur to another beginner entrepreneur. If you're a beginner entrepreneur, if you're not, then you could probably go ahead and skip this. You probably don't need this video, or maybe you shouldn't really skip, because these are still going to be tips that you can actually implement. These tips are now, they're not specifically SMMA related, although they indirectly relate to them, because obviously that's the sort of business I am running at the moment. They're more broad, as in like business in a whole, entrepreneurship in a whole. So guys, before I get into this, I just want to say that I want to be dropping more videos on sort of like the day in the life, more of my thoughts. I want to document the journey more. So I actually thought about this video because I was just thinking to myself, if I could go back in time, what would I tell myself right at the beginning to do right now? And I think this might be helpful for you guys, because you can maybe skip some of the hardship, heartache, headache, blood, sweat and tears that I've had to go through. I'm talking real tears, real tears. So tip number 1 would be, the market decides your value. Don't just go and start a business you think is going to be the next big thing. You really want to do your market research here, guys. Like for me, for example, I remember back in the day when I wanted to start a clothing line, I just thought to myself, I'm starting a clothing line. Why, Montel? Why are you starting a clothing line, Montel? Because I want to. It's my passion. That's what I'm doing. A lot of people say you should start a business from your passion. I actually disagree with that. I believe your first business should be what fuels your passion. Your first business should be what's going to get you paid first. Then you could take the money out of that business and then start your passion, which is kind of what I'm doing here with my social media marketing agency. Not that I don't love it, because I actually do. I do love this stuff very much, and I'm sure you guys can actually tell that already. It's changed the way I do life. I mean, I get up at 5:30 every day. I'm more disciplined, more mentally sharp than I've ever been in my entire life. All that great stuff. So tip number 1 would be, don't start a business just out of sheer passion alone. It's find a problem and find a way to solve that problem. I know that's pretty cliche in the entrepreneur space, but that's really what you're doing. Think about a social media marketing agency. The number 1 problem all businesses can have is a lack of customers. Now, if you can come in and solve that problem for a business, you will be valued very highly. So just to compare that with my clothing line, I didn't do any research whatsoever, no market research, no nothing. I sheerly wanted to start a clothing line because I just wanted a clothing line, because it was my passion, which is great and all, but that would have got me paid and I needed the money type of thing. So that's tip number 1. To summarize, tip number 1 would be, always do your market research, spot problems, find the solution for those problems. Don't just go and try and wing it. Do your research, find the problem, solve the problem. It doesn't just have to be a social media marketing agency. You can go solve some sort of other problem. So my second tip would be, find a mentor as soon as possible. I know that this isn't possible for a lot of you guys, but in some of these courses, it's more rehashed stuff that gets worded a little bit differently and then put in courses, and then you take that course and then it kind of leaves you in the same position. I've taken so many courses now. Guys, if I could go back and I had the money, I would definitely just get a mentor straight away. I used to think that all this online mentoring stuff and online courses were all scams, until I truly saw what was inside these courses. Not saying that nothing's inside these courses that you can't really find online, or that's bullshit or anything like that. These courses are very valuable. Well, some of them are anyway. Of course, there are bullshit ones out there. But if you want to get the most up-to-date, straight from the horse's mouth type of data and information, skills, I just would recommend getting a mentor ASAP. And that's rich coming from me. In fact, I don't even do mentorship yet, so technically it's not really rich coming from me. So tip number 2 would be, get a mentor. This is just going to make your life a little bit more easier. It's going to cut down the path of failure. In business, normally it takes you a long time to start seeing some really good results, and I think that a mentor would definitely help you maybe half that, even half that again, so a quarter of that time would be cut down. So I would definitely get a mentor if I was you guys. It's just going to cut your time down. If you ever have questions, needs, wants, I mean, it does get lonely out here, guys, which is going to be one of my next points. A mentor would be there. A real mentor will be your friend. You'll be able to talk to them on a friend-to-friend level. That's what a real mentor is. So tip number 3 would be that it's not what it seems. It's really not what it seems, you guys. It's you're really starting a business here. It's a lot of hard work, and I think a lot of people are really selling you guys dreams on it's glamorous. I mean, I work in this bedroom sometimes for 12 hours a day on my own. I don't talk to nobody except for people on my Snapchat when I go on lunch breaks or whatever it might be, or like when I'm winding down to go to sleep. I really don't really speak to anyone anymore. I'm not really social anymore. I've lost interest in, girls. I've lost interest in girls. Not saying that I'm gay or anything. I'm just not the same as I used to be. I'm kind of falling out with the whole partying scene. I used to be such a party boy. I kind of don't really like that anymore. It's not interesting to me. I just care about how can I get better as an entrepreneur. How can I provide more value? I guess that's not a bad thing. I mean, it's just that, guys, it's just not what it seems, as in it's not glamorous. It really does boil down to you being able to work and focus for hours on end in a room where you're just isolated and you're really putting in work. The early mornings will burn your eyes. You will want to go to sleep. Your body will beg you to sleep. Your eyes will just cease up. It's crazy, but I would be lying to you if I didn't say that entrepreneurship is the way to freedom. I mean, it just is. The whole equation of going to work for somebody else and working for an hourly rate is actually a broken formula. I actually did the maths the other day. I'm sure you guys have seen some of my previous videos where I break down why it's a broken formula. I mean, if you work for a certain amount of hours, there's only a certain amount of hours you can work in a day, and you can only be up to a certain value to a company. Name me a job where you can make more than 250k or 500k a year or $1 million a year and still be an employee for somebody. Not no regular job or 9 to 5, I know. So tip number 3 would be, it's just not glamorous. It's not what it seems. It really is hard work. It is definitely fun. You can definitely have fun doing this. I mean, I laugh a lot even on cold calls. I'm quite a charismatic guy. Well, I like to think so anyway. I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet here, but I do like to have a laugh with people. I'm quite a nice guy. I've always been polite. I've always been down to earth type of guy. So tip number 4, I kind of just touched upon it just then, which is you have to learn to be alone for long periods of time. Dan Lok actually said this. So if you guys know who Dan Lok is, a big YouTuber, a big entrepreneur in the game, the king of high ticket sales, he calls himself. So Dan Lok actually summed this up in such a perfect little quote, and it just rings in my head every single day, every morning. And that is, the number 1 characteristic of an entrepreneur is the ability to endure long periods of pain. And I was just thinking to myself, that is some real shit. That is actually deep. It's actually so true. Like you can be in your room for hours on end, not talking to nobody, working, things not going right, and it's just painful, heartache every day, taking L's, rejection on cold calls after cold calls, rejection after rejection, and it can get to you. It really can get to you. I mean, I even started developing anxiety and stuff like that. So it's not glamorous, and you have to learn how to be alone and not to go crazy. But make sure you keep balance, guys. Make sure you keep balance. I know a lot of people say there's not much balance in the beginning, which is definitely true. There's not really much balance in the beginning. I mean, you do want to maximize, health, wealth, love, and happiness. But if you are healthy like I am, not wealthy though, you kind of have to put everything else on hold and focus on one thing at a time. Like Confucius said, he who tries to catch 2 rabbits ends up catching none. So I believe that you have to focus on one, get it to a sustainable point where you can then focus on another thing. And tip number 5 is a tip that I really needed to hear when I first started this whole entrepreneur journey, and that is you have to learn how to feel comfortable being uncomfortable. Bit of a tongue twister, but you really do have to get used to being uncomfortable, guys. I mean, a year ago, if you told me I would have been on YouTube making cold calls, speaking to millionaire business owners every day, having sales calls that last longer than 10 minutes, 2 minutes. Some of these sales calls that I've been having recently are lasting way over an hour long over the phone. In fact, just a couple months ago, I actually uploaded a video of me talking about my fear of cold calling. And I was still scared then, so it's crazy to see my progression over just a short period of time. I was actually scared to talk. That my number one fear, even at university, when I used to go to university, I used to do everything in my power to get out of presenting in front of the class. That's how scared I was. Like, I'm not even joking. There was actually a time where me and a friend, I'm not going to say his name, but if he's watching this, he knows who he is. We came up with this plan where we said that his contact lens ripped in his eye just so we could get out of presenting in front of the class, because we were just both just too scared. Well, I was scared, he wasn't. He was quite a confident kid, but he was kind of like, you know, being a good friend and backing me up. But I was always it's so weird, because I'm like an introvert and extrovert. I'm like in the middle. It's like I'm quite a social guy, but when it comes to presenting and speaking to other people, like new people, I don't really like that, unless it's like I can make friends quite easily. But when it's like a serious situation, I don't like being judged. You see, I think I talk weird, I think I look weird, I don't know what it is. I don't like being judged, but I'm getting over that. So develop the ability to overcome that fear of being uncomfortable, because you're gonna be very uncomfortable, guys. Like, I'm not even gonna lie to you. You're gonna be very uncomfortable. There's times where you're gonna feel depressed. There's times when you're gonna have anxiety. There's times where, you know, you're going to want to quit, cry in the corner, which I've done a couple of times. I cannot lie. It's been a crazy journey. But guys, make sure you keep in there, stick in there. These are just a few tips I could think of off the top of my head right here, right now. But I'll probably make a part 2 of this, because I think that these tips might be helpful to you. And I just want to say that I'm trying to keep it real with you guys on camera. I'm trying not to cut up this video too much, and just look at the sort of tips that I've been giving you. Really look at them at a logical standpoint. I'm really not trying to sell you this whole entrepreneur stuff at all. In fact, I'd advise most of you not to even join the entrepreneur journey, because it is stressful. Sometimes I wake up in the morning, I think to myself, why couldn't I just be normal? Why couldn't I just accept going to work? Why couldn't I just finish? Why couldn't I have just finished university and got a job? And then I think to myself, are you really wanting to settle your life like that? You've got one life and you're gonna settle like that. And then I think to myself, nope, entrepreneurship it is. Anyway, guys, these have been a couple of tips from me. Probably gonna make a part 2, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.